Go! Go, Fat Tracker, go, go, go!
The Kelpie Fat Track Pod, brought to you by Kelpie, affordable race products designed to help you stay on track. Now onto the episode.
I'm back. Welcome to another Kelpie Flat Track Pod. It's been a little while, sorry about that. I had a few people send out messages, what's going on, when's the next pod, that sort of thing. Had my dad and my nephews over from New Zealand. Preparing for them and just hanging out with them, which was fantastic, spending some time together. Hadn't seen my dad for I think about 5 years or something like that, thanks to COVID and everything else. And then my nephews, I haven't seen them for about 7 years, so it was fantastic to catch up with them, spend some one-on-one time with them. And they came to the SSRAV, which is Sidecar Races Association of, or Speedway Sidecar Races Association of Victoria, I think it is. Sorry guys if I got that wrong. I've always struggled with that one. But they have an MX class on their club days, and that was really great. Went and got my first race after injury out the way, and to be honest, I was shitting my pants. Excuse the language, kids, if you're listening, but I was nervous, really nervous. The first couple races, I got a fifth and a fourth, and then the rest of the day were thirds, so 3 thirds I think it was. So a really great way to get back into it for me. It wasn't too much pressure. The only pressure was being put on by myself. But had an awesome time at that. There is another one coming up. I think it's the 4th of February. Hopefully I'm going to make it. And then there's a come and try day on the long track the next day with the Harley Club of Victoria, which, is a great way to get into the sport or see if you like it, test it. You don't have to have all the setup. They have spare tyres. I've got a couple of old ones lying around too if you need one, so just reach out. I'll definitely be there on the Sunday. The Saturday is still a little bit up in the air. See how I go with all my catching up, which I'm doing at the moment, which is going well actually. I got a lot of paperwork done yesterday that I've been slack on. It's something I really really don't like doing. I'm not that flash on that side of things. Working hard to get better at it though, because I know it's a necessity. Looking at hosting a short track day up at Broadford on their speedway track up there on the 26th of Feb. It's under my coaching licence, so there is going to be an element of coaching, but it's more going to be about seat time and focusing on your weaknesses, and actually instead of just doing lap after lap and actually not focusing on things. That's basically what it's going to be about. So most riders know what they struggle at. If you're very new, you're not going to, so it'll be seat time. And then myself, or I think I am going to have a couple other coaches, and definitely have more experienced riders there that will be able to pass on their experience as well. So keep an eye on our social medias. Probably more Facebook than Instagram for that one. So the Kelpie Facebook page, keep an eye on that, and there'll be probably a drop form coming out pretty shortly. I've just got to write it up with all the information you'll need to know. It's not catered or anything like that. It's a pretty cruisy day. Bring your lunch, bring water. I'll probably bring some backup in case people forget and stuff like that. That will. The drop form's a great way to get an idea of numbers, and you can pay before the event, so it's all sorted. Full refund if something happens and it doesn't go ahead. So really looking forward to that. So a lot going on. I've mentioned the Kelpie Cup a few times. That's starting to size up a bit. It's definitely not easy thing to get off the ground. Hopefully, I initially wanted 6 rounds, but we'll see how we go. I think probably will, but it's all going to be very last minute, and hopefully it's going to come across professional, and the people that do attend really enjoy it, and we'll just grow and build on it and keep working at it. It's no AFTN. It's not designed to be an AFTN. It's designed to give you guys places to ride. The guys that do want to ride AFTN in a class that's more 19s focus. 21-19 will be able to run too, and 19-19s. So yeah, that's awesome. Looking forward to that. So what are we doing? Did I get a guest? Well, how did I get a guest? I've got a few lined up actually, and I think everyone's sort of recouping after Christmas and New Year, and we're all trying to get our shit together. Lots of meetings going on, obviously Bathurst, which we talked about before Christmas. Sounds like Skylift's coming back and a little bit more pulled back sort of layout, but I think that's going to be cool. So yeah, our short track day will be perfect for getting some seat time to prepare for that. Looks like Ipswich, I think, are running a 19-inch flat track little series, or I'm not sure. I have to look into it a bit harder. I only saw what Steve Hughes posted on Short Track Down Under, so have a look on there. And it's the weekend after the last rounds of the AFTN. So if you can hang up around that area for a week, that would be great. Show the club lots of support and more great racing. I mean, that's what we want: more places to race and more events to race in. So, 19-inch base sounds like it's going off. On the sales side of things, I don't know who's really interested in how Kelpie's going, but you should be, because the more Kelpie grows, the more we can push and help events and series and people. I can say that we are supporting the AFTN again this year with a gate prize for spectators. I really like to see spectators grow more, spectating. Just it gives the riders more of a platform to play in front of as well, and obviously helps the promoters promote the sport more. If there's more spectators, that's more attractive to sponsors, maybe TV, maybe live streaming. It goes on and on and on. So the pod that I've done, which I started to get to, and now I'm rambling again, is Paul Caslick, known as Cazzo to a lot of all his close friends. And this guy, it's pretty hard to explain. It's been around 35 plus years, 15 plus Australian titles. We go into it a little bit. He's pretty modest. I've got a couple notes there. This one I was confused at, but it's explained to you in the pods. But 155 Queensland Championship wins. 155, and he's 55 years of age. But he goes into that, and it makes more sense. 7 long track championships, Australian titles. So I mean, those stats, it's pretty amazing, really, isn't it? So he's an awesome rider. Passes on his knowledge in coaching clinics, more advanced coaching clinics. He's been on, I think it was committees and boards in New South Wales, Motorcycling New South Wales. He's been around, let's say it, knows all the top riders that have made a name for themselves in many disciplines in Australia. So let's get into it. One thing I will mention, our service was pretty shit. I don't know why. Normally, I mean, even with the Netherlands, it was pretty good. We had a couple for frozens during the pod, so a couple glitchy bits. So I do apologise about that. I don't have the answers, but hopefully it doesn't annoy you too much. It annoys me, but there's nothing I can do about it now. And if I can edit them out and still have the pod make sense, I will. But I don't. Looking at the footage at the moment, I don't think so. But Anyway, I hope you enjoy it. Back into training, been cycling a lot. I'm actually missing round 1 of the Harley Club Champs because I'm doing a cancer research fundraiser ride and yeah, all I could afford to put in was $20 to the fundraiser. But I mean, it's a great thing to be doing. And yeah, I've lost a couple of friends to cancer, unfortunately, and also sort of in my age bracket, which is really sad. You know, it's a very young age to be dying at around the 50 mark and the late 40s. So it's really sad. So I wanted to do this one. Plus, I love cycling. It's a gravel ride this year instead of a mountain bike, sort of, unfortunately. But the gravel ride's still fun, so I've been doing a bit of that lately. Yeah, so I'll probably post a fundraising link for that on the social media. So keep an eye out if you've lost anyone to cancer and would like to donate $10, $5, doesn't matter, whatever you can afford. That'd be fantastic, and I appreciate it. Just putting that out there now. Yeah, so I hope you enjoy. It's great to be back. Like I said, we've got a few great ones coming up. I don't want to mention them now, not until they're recorded anyway, just in case. And but they are going to be coming. And yeah, let's get into it. Paul Caslick. All right, so joining us is Paul Caslick. How you going, Paul? You've gone to a remote, secluded spot to have a chat.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, look, I got up early this morning. Thanks for having me on, Darcy, actually, and hope your Christmas was a good one. Yeah, I got up this morning. Like my wife and I normally get up first thing in the morning. We go and do some training, do some walking, and yeah, then I come up the bay. I go back to work tomorrow as well, so it's a beautiful spot up here up at Nelson Bay, Shoal Bay. So yeah, just come up here, but right on 2:00 actually. I've pulled up in one of our favourite spots. Actually, we only called in here the other day and found out how good it was. If you come up to the Nelsons Bay area at all, Valhalla, real cold beer and great pizzas.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, so I've just pulled
and
over
so
here.
you go swimming there, and is that sort of bay?
Yeah,
beautiful.
mate, yeah,
hopefully we don't experience too much lag in that, but yeah, should be all good. Yeah, and Happy New Year and Merry Christmas to you. I should have done all those formalities. I'm not very good at that sort of stuff. But
no, that's all right, Darcy.
But it's been a busy period, and look, for the guys that don't know much about you, let's start from the start, which I'm not going to say was a long time ago, but sort of was a while ago now. You've been racing since you were a kid, and were you always is Chesnook? Is that the right pronunciation for you? The area you live in, and you've always been there.
I was born in Maitland Hospital, and my dad and mum grew up in the Maitland area. But I lived in Curry, Chad Reed, Casey Stone area.
Yeah,
it's a really good area for motorcycle riding, like millions of kilometres through the bush where you can ride bikes. So
yeah,
my growing up years was spent at Curry, but I've always been in that area in any case now, and I live in Cessnock now with my wife. We've been in Cessnock now for 8 years, and it's a great spot. Like any spot, it's not without its own little dramas here and there, but you get that in every single town. People trying to earn money doing the wrong things and all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't take away the ability to be able to go and ride a mountain bike and a motorbike wherever you want to.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what sort of restrictions do you have there on bikes? Like here we need rego and that sort of stuff down in Victoria. Do you need anything like that, or it's just common sense and they trust you?
Well, legally up here you should have, but we have some of the most talented motorcycle riders that seem to be able to do remarkable things 2 and 3 a.m. in the morning with no lights. You hear them out the bush. I don't know how the hell they do this, but you hear them all the time. Obviously they're doing illicit activities, but the motorbikes go in our area all the time on the road, and we can blame the internet for that. You see it in America. The hoons in America ride motocross bikes wherever they want, and now they think they can do it over here, it's quite sad actually. But but we are graced with so much forestry up here that like from where I live now, and not now that I'm racing, but I was able to go and practice at 4 different motocross tracks within 3-4 kilometres of home.
Yeah,
So,
right.
you're meant to have that rec riding. I've had police stop and watch me actually ride where I'm riding, but I would always have my van driven to the track. I didn't ride there illegally. I had, an esky full of fruit and bananas and water, and I did my stuff, and then I went home. So that's the beauty of that area. But to do it legally, you should have the, registered bike, licensed, all the gear. Yeah.
Yeah. The thing that I dislike about, I won't use hate, it's a pretty strong word, but dislike about those videos is, the influence that they're given, and that 9 times out of 10, those guys aren't in any safety gear or anything like that. And doing a bit of coaching myself, and you obviously do coaching, and that's the number one thing I emphasize, is just make sure you're wrapped up and you respect your life. You've got a helmet on, decent helmet, not just a $99 job. And respect the dirt bike. They not everyone gets that opportunity to ride them and use them, so respect it, and stay safe. I think that's the thing that pisses me off the most with those videos. You said monoing down in between cars, no helmet, no nothing. It's just it's pretty disgusting, really.
Well, it is. And I tell everyone, dress to your pain threshold. If you don't have a pain threshold, well, wear shorts. But if you don't want to put up with the pain associated with falling off, protect yourself.
It's pretty nasty when it goes wrong. Like I've actually done exactly what I said you shouldn't do, and I've worn shorts and forgot about my 2 bangers pipe where that went, and had a nice scar on the leg. Just thinking, just trying to get it running, and just trying to get it running. I'll do a quick test, but it's not worth it. Make sure you got overalls on or jeans or something. But so learn from that one. So you're cool. What were you going to say?
No, I think we're all guilty of that. I've got a few exhaust pipe burns on my leg where we do a quick rebuild on the bike, and you'd fire her up, and down the back paddock you'd go just to bed the piston and rings in, and next minute, you'd go, I should have put my gear on. Yeah.
So you've got a bit of a reputation. I don't know how you feel about it as a track legend. You've got a lot of is it 15 Australian championships under your belt, or is it more or less? Or have I got that?
It's around that, Darcy. I don't go counting them, but it's around that. I think it's probably 15 or 18 Australian championships, somewhere around that figure.
And so going back to when you were younger, was racing always, is it just in your blood to be competitive, or was riding, obviously you went the racing route, but was riding, you could have just done that without the racing for your whole life too, or just that competitive beast needed to be fed, and that's how you end up, getting those wins under your belt?
Well, my dad raced dirt track himself, and only through rupturing an ACL in one of his knees, then he went to dirt track sidecars. And then when it got a bit stale for him, so he went to the Sydney Showground and seen the Speedway sidecars, and that was him. That was he found what he wanted to do. And then I spent a lot of my years growing up at the Sydney Showground. Every Saturday night we'd make our way to the Sydney Showground. During the 70s, and I say Dad was probably one of the unluckiest riders not to win an Australian championship, because he was most certainly the caliber to do that. He was mad, he was crazy, he was out there to win, he was out there to race his sidecar like no one else. And I think I got that from him. I grew up watching the best solo riders at the time, the sidecar riders at the time, and grew up at the Speedway, and that's all I wanted to do was just race a motorbike. And it's funny because my mum said when I first got my very first motorcycle, which was an MR50 Honda, she said, if I would have known that a motorbike would have done for you what it did for you, she said, you would have had a bastard when you were 3, because it just, it gave me something to channel all my energy. I was a highly energetic kid. I didn't like sitting still, and I still don't like sitting still even now. But the progression into that was, I had a mini bike for probably 18 months before I actually went. Dad took me to Cessnock Mini Bike Club, and it started from there. And we were governed by the Speedway Act of, I don't know, it was New South Wales or Australia at the time, and we weren't allowed to race in New South Wales. So we would spend the morning at Cessnock Mini Bike Club under the guidance of Keith Allen, and he had a fantastic program of all the mini-carna, gymkhana style events, teaching us the basic skills, motorcycle control, all the things that we needed to learn to go slow in order to go fast. And then we went from there, we found out, I'm not quite sure how Dad found out, but we all ventured to Queensland then, because we were allowed to race in Queensland under the Quambah Association. And I remember going there for the first time, and I think they had like 475 junior riders at this first event we ever went to, and it was racing. I'm like, wow, this is awesome. Yeah. And I ended up finishing third. That was my very first attempt at a championship, and I think we had something like 50 kids on little MR50s in our group. So that it just went from there. And then I remember one year we did like 35 trips to Queensland in 1 year when I was racing juniors in the mini bike scene. So not only was I competitive, but Dad was also pretty good at feeding that hunger.
Yeah, it takes a lot of commitment for a parent to step up and make all those road trips and organise everything. And how did you find the balance? Like you say, he had the equipment to feed that, but did he push you, or did you just push yourself? He didn't need to. He just made sure you got to the events.
Dad likes to think he didn't push me, but I think with every successful rider, at some stage there is push. There has to be push. There has to be, because we don't have that in our own psyche to understand giving it our best all the time. So I think at every one of us experience in the junior scene some area of push from the parental side of it. I won't say Dad was the pushy parent, abusive pushy parent like we see so often, but he knew what I was capable of. He knew what I was capable of on any given day, and he just wanted me to go out and do my very best that he knew that I was capable of. And he would share the disappointment. And I had this conversation with Chris Watson as well. Chris went through the same thing, like where his dad and my dad both wanted the very best for us. And they felt the pain. They felt the pain and the anguish of the loss, because they knew what it meant to us as the riders. It also meant to them as the parent. So I wouldn't say Dad was pushy, but if there was a meeting on, we were going. And I had to make the choice between going to birthday. If I wanted to go to a birthday party, it was always, well, what do you want to do? You want to go to a birthday party, or you want to go and race your frigging motorbike? If you don't want to race your frigging motorbike, we'll sell it. Like you make up your mind. What is it that you want to do? So I never went to any birthday parties when I was a kid, until I had one of my own when I was 18. So, on those kind of things. And he put everything into it, Dad. He did. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very fine line, isn't it?
Yeah. I got a bit choked up then. Sorry, mate.
No, that's all right. I'm assuming Dad's passed away, and has it been a while, or?
No, Dad passed 12 months ago.
Yeah, so you're not long.
I won't go into that. Very, very sad circumstances. And we just lost our family's best friend, Johnny Anderson. He went to sleep the other night, never woke up. And he was part of our family, John. Such a nice guy. He was there. He loved my racing. He loved bikes himself. He used to race himself. he got his son Troy into bikes, but Troy never raced like we did. But John always had a love for what I did on the bikes and was always there to support me and encourage me all the time and talk to me about the highs and the lows and how to deal with certain things, you know. But yeah, John only passed, you know. Sadly, I've got to go up north coaching the weekend, and his send-off's on Friday, and I can't make it, which is just devastating.
Yeah, it's a tough part of life, isn't it? Death, but it's a reality, and it's something actually I wanted to talk about. It's something that doesn't get talked about on pods and in the racing paddock that much. But over your career, sort of, how have you dealt with that, like losing mates to racing and the thought of, was that thought ever in your mind, or you just completely blanked it out and just, because I find that quite interesting. I hope it's not too dark for our listeners, but I've seen a couple of guys that are close to that have been seriously injured, and it's sort of made, because I wasn't at the pointy end of racing, sort of made it a little bit harder for me to not go out and race, but it's in my mind a bit more, I think.
Yeah, look,
we've still got you, you've frozen.
we got a little bit of lag. We got a little bit of lag
frozen there. Hopefully Paul bounces back in a minute.
I'm still here.
Yeah. Bit of lag there, that's all right. I wasn't sure if you were upset with my question or if you were frozen.
No, not at all, mate. Look, look, at the end of the day...
Too. So just, but...
Yep. Good to go?
Yep.
Okay. Look, death is part of what we do. It is a very risky sport where when things go wrong, they go horribly wrong. And although I've been fortunate in that area that I haven't had to experience losing friends, I've lost more friends away from the track than at the track. I can't say that I've ever been in an event where a rider has lost their life. Recently, you know, we've had some circumstances where riders that I've known they've actually lost their life, but also out of circumstances not bike related, more age related than anything. I think at the end of the day, Darcy, look, I'm a bit like, a very well-known rider. I won't mention his name, but I know it is like as well. Like, I don't want to die. I know he doesn't want to, and he's a hero of mine. And I always thought in the back of my mind, if I went out and did things 100% and I kept myself safe, I was aggressive, but not to a point of being dangerous. I was aggressive. If it came down to a championship race and I was more aggressive with riders on motocross bikes than what I was with riders on sliders. Riders on sliders, you have to give them the room. You have to.
Yeah.
You can... riders on sliders, if you were to go in and be so aggressive with a rider on a slider, you can kill them, like you could, because those things are ridden on the edge, and the consequences of things going wrong are massive. So I always rode more aggressive against riders on the same style of bikes as what I was on. I think at the end of the day, I probably finished second more times over not wanting to risk crashing to win a race. I just didn't feel it was worth it. And I think that's why I was able to race for 48 years. So I raced for 48 years. The injuries that I accumulated along the way, I don't think have been anywhere near what's going to hinder me in my older years. So, yeah, if I was to experience, and to get back to the point of the question, I think if you were to experience death like they used to many years ago in its inception, particularly even in Speedway, you probably wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
You know, you'd weigh it up, you know, and I look at it now in particular, risk versus reward. You've got to weigh that up. You know what I mean? And I have this conversation quite often, and everyone says, oh, you know, yeah, but he went out dying, you know, he went out doing what he loved. If you gave a rider a helmet and a pair of goggles and you gave him what was going to happen, what was just about to happen, and you can avoid it by not going out, and you can spend the rest of your life with your family, or you can go out and you can die doing what you love, what would your choice be? It would not be on a motorbike. And I don't care what anyone says. And that may be controversial. That may be controversial to a few people. But you know what? No way. No way. No sport is worth that. No sport is worth your life. It's a risk that we take. It is a risk that we take. And no one wants to die doing what we love. I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, no, that's good, because that's sort of where I'm at. I would rather live, that's for sure. But I do love doing what I do as well. But I also sort of think too, I don't know how you feel about this, but when I have any coaching students or people I'm sort of helping or mentoring, I suppose you could say, is I always remind them that, remember, this is more like an apprenticeship. You don't have to be fast straight away. Learn your limits, stick within your limits. Like you were saying, stay safe, but so you can race another day. Like, if you have to let the position go, let the position go. Because most of the events, it's for a $13 trophy or something like that, or $20 trophy, which I love my trophies. Some people don't display them in that and will hand them back, but I feel like I've earned my trophy. You know, that's the way I look at it. So I cherish my trophies no matter the value of them, but I'm not going to risk my life to get it, or someone else's for that.
No,
so
no, not at all. Look, at the end of the day, I go back to the 80s, you know, when I was riding for the Triple M Pro Cycles team. Like, we had pressure, you know, and not that I felt the pressure, because I didn't, you know what I mean? I was outside of racing, I was an 18-year-old larrikin kid, you know what I mean? And I worked hard to, when I got to the track, and if I could be kept on the straight and narrow the night before a race meeting, I was there to do one thing and one thing only, and that was to go and win. That was to win. At all costs, it was to win. But, you know, at the end of the day, perspective has to come into play now, because really and dirt track generally now doesn't, there's so many opportunities from all the disciplines, but I don't think the people realize now just how big dirt track used to be in the 70s and the 80s. Well, I go back to the 60s, 70s, 80s. Like, it was pretty big. Like, we used to get some pretty good crowds at all the events. You know, there was some good sponsorship that could be had. You know, it was on. It was good fun.
Yeah, I've seen some great videos, flashback videos on YouTube, and you know, technology is great in that respect. We can sort of look back, and I did want to talk about that too. And you know, what was the wheel sets you were running then? Was it 2118 or 2119 or 1919s? Because it's hard to tell on some of the footage. Looks like 1919s to me in some of it. But yeah, and why did that change? I got told by someone that there was a certain tyre that everyone used, and then they stopped being manufactured. But I'm not sure if you know anything about that, or.
Yep. Obviously, years ago, the motocross bikes just ran motocross wheels. I remember I'd see some incredible photos of Warren Willis on old Makos, like running, I think they were, Keith Davies would be able to tell you, like K180 Dunlop, you know, semi-road tyre on the rear, or a trials type tyre. And Warren was hooking in on old Mako motocross bikes, like just incredible photos. In the 80s, when I came to dirt track racing, we were running 19s. Yeah. We ran a 19 on the front, we ran a 19 on the back, And if we were lucky enough to have a spare wheel that had a 19-inch hard pack Carlisle RAX tyre on it, when the track went to Blue Groove, out come the Speedway tyre and the Carlisle tyre went in. But you had to get to the groove, because if it weren't on the groove, it wouldn't work. The only time we would use a 21-inch front wheel, I'm glad you asked this question. I remember the Australian Championship at Bendigo Showground in 1985. And I did Dad before we went down there. The 19-inch front wheels coming out, and I'm putting motocross front wheels in there. And it came under a little bit of congestion even with Dad. He said, "You sure?" I said, "I'm telling you, Dad," because I also rode motocross quite a lot as well. I said, "I'm telling you, it's at a showground circuit. The 19s won't work in the front. We're going with motocross front tyres." Anyway, when we got down there, I copped a bit of haggling from a few of the riders. "You got the wrong wheels in there, Cazzo." After practice, let me tell you, they were all looking for motocross wheels. So the only time we actually ran a 21-inch front wheel is when we came to Victoria, because Victoria had the shale type circuits, where up in New South Wales we had oil, whether it been hard or loose. But in the 80s too, no track was hard. No track was presented hard. They were all presented loose, loam, oiled surface. And they were so good to ride. They were the best tracks to ride on. They really were, because they were so predictable. The front ends particularly, and they were a Carlisle tyre, which was now the Goodyear, which is now the Dunlop. Carlisle stopped manufacturing their flat track tyres, I think might have been in the early 90s, maybe late 80s, and then Goodyear took over. So then the Goodyears were 19s. Stephen Gall was the first one to go to the road type front tyre when he put in, I think it was a 19-inch on the front at Kempsey in 1978. And then from there, Peter Goddard was the first one to go to the Michelin 16 by 1868, I think that was the tyre number, actually. And then he ran the Michelin full wets on the front and the back. And at Maryborough, I think he was lapping a gazillion seconds faster than everybody else in the wet. And it's only that he fell off in the 500, that he fell off on the first corner, got up from dead last, and finished fourth right behind me. Had he stayed on that motorcycle, no one would have beaten him. Yeah, so Peter was the one that went to the 18-inch tyres. So then we had a combination of either 21-18, 21-19, 19-19, or 19-18, or 18-18. So it exploded. Yeah. It all exploded. Yeah. Some tracks you had to be careful. If you put the 18 in the rear from the 19, it changed the rake in the front and it made it want to understeer. So you had to be very careful with how you set the bike up as well. But they were great years, because we got to learn all these different techniques and all these different opportunities that gave us better options, really.
Yeah, and understanding of your bike setup and what the changes of wheel diameter and that does to that. And I sort of feel like we might be going back that way a little bit. Like, so as you probably know, I run Kelpie and we do 19-inch wheel sets. So yep. People have been trying them out, and you're quite surprised at some of the changes they have to make, and actually surprised. The front's always probably more the issue than the rear. The rear, I've had quite a few riders say, "Oh, they're so predictable. I know it's going to hold the slide." Unlike the trials tyre, where sometimes you're not sure if it's just going to go on you, sort of thing. But yeah, I think it's really interesting, and I've said to a few riders, try different combinations. You know, try 21-19 if you want, with your motocross tyre on the front and your American one on the back, and try that out. See what you reckon, and just experiment a bit. And I hope I hope the window stays open, that we can do that throughout dirt track and at I promote and sell 19s, but I don't want that to get rid of industry that's already here, if that makes sense. I want it to
Yeah,
be
of
able
course.
to be a bit more open, and like I'm being told I'm not allowed to run our universal tyre front and back in the 19s class, even though it's a 19, you know, and it's sort of like, I sort of understand, because it puts everyone on an even playing field if they're all on American tyres. I get that, but I don't think there's an actual threat. I don't think you're going to, I think the times would be very close, you know? So, but yeah, it sort of scares me a little bit that a lot of people or might push for it all to go 19s, and I don't actually want that. I think having the versatility so you can change at tracks and makes it a bit more of a science, you know, like teams can, and if you can't afford it, then you run what you can afford, sort of thing. But I love options. I think having options is a great thing. I don't know, sort of leading into what you're thinking about the 19s coming in over here, and obviously the AFT, you know, I think it's a fantastic series and to be coming, and the teaser looked really good. What are your opinions on that?
Look, it's no secret, mate, that yeah, I was pretty vocal when it come to the 19-inch tyres in the motocross bikes. Look, I think they should be 19-inch because that's what they run overseas in the AFT singles. I think when you look at it, and not everyone looks at it like I do, neither, Darcy, and opinions are great. You know, they're like fat asses at Jenny Craig. Everyone's got one at the end of the day. Well, not everyone's got one, but there's opinions everywhere. But at the end of the day, if you want to go and ride Speedway, those kids now have their own discipline from 9 years old, or even it might be younger than that now. But they can go and ride Speedway as its own standalone discipline from those early years. As far as the sliders go, particularly in Australia, there is no importer now into Australia. No one mass imports those sliders into this country now. You know what I mean? So you've got your long track classes, you've got your long track events, we've got everything like that. That's all well and good. And I know they all get warm and fuzzy when a C grade slider rider can go out there and beat an A grade motocross rider on a track that suits them. But they only turn up on tracks that suits them. And that's all well and good. I've watched this for years. Even when I was in the 80s, you'd go to a slider track, and that's what made me so determined to mix it with the sliders on tracks that suited them, because I thought I despised a C-grade slider rider elevating themselves because they could go out there and put half a lap on a motocross bike on a track that suited them. And I thought that was just, well, call it discrimination if you want, I suppose, but I just didn't like it at all. So at the end of the day, they have their class. They have their class, and times have changed. Now, when I was involved with Motorcycle in New South Wales, the question came in of litigation. Litigation, if something was to happen, because no one grew up racing against slider bikes, right? So the biggest thing that came to question was, if something would happen and a rider was to wipe out a slider rider and they would be killed, we had a massive lawsuit on our hands. And that was the biggest factor why the separation came in. And I know there's people out there, mate, they've wanted me dead over my opinion on that. And I'm glad you've asked me that question, because they've just got the truth. That's why it came in. It was only through litigation and the fear that someone was going to get sued if this was to happen, because you can't have a trike in with a quad. You know what I mean? You can't have a sprint car in with a super sedan. That you have their own discipline, and this is what really scared. This is what scared the powers to be. Now, as far as the 19s go, I think it's a great opportunity now. And we're looking at young Sam Drain. We're looking at Max Whale. I hear that Jared Brooks now going back to America as well. There are so many riders in Australia have got the talent, and with the Aussie Flat Track Nationals coming in now, we will see a transitional time for riders now to go from riding dirt track here. And what's going to happen here, poor old dirt track in Australia is going to wear the brunt of it, because the best riders from dirt track in Australia are going to go overseas. They will go overseas and pursue their dream of being a factory rider in the American Flat Track Series. So I think the 1919s is a great opportunity, whether it's in its own standalone series like the Flat Track Nationals, and I applaud the people that have gone ahead and done that, because I think that's the only way you're going to get the success that it deserves, is to just have it as a standalone, because you're dealing with too many personalities and too many opinions that just want what they want. They're not thinking of the big picture. You know, and at the end of the day, look, I'm thinking of the big picture. I'm thinking of the big picture, and I'm thinking of the riders. I've had my time, and I'm thinking about the riders now that are coming through that have really got some good opportunities in front of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
19s all day.
Yeah, I'm of the same opinion, and that's why the reason I created the block pattern was to help that merger, help people see they can use a one wheel set for all. I mean, you can put some road tires on them and go motarding if you want. They're pretty versatile, and I feel confident on my 19s pretty much in every environment I've taken them. But also the other thing is I can see what you're talking about too, but not only just the American side of racing, which is probably the biggest platform for 19s, but UK is not far behind. I don't know if you've watched much or listened to much of this pod, but we're talking to the Netherlands. We've talked to New Zealand. We've got viewers and listeners from Indonesia, and they all understand the 19 setup. That's what they believe flat track is. It's a universal worldwide setup. That means you can basically, whether you're on chasing a factory ride or you've just been saving for 8 years to go over and race with some guys in a different country, doesn't matter. You can do it and you know what to expect. And I think that just makes sense to me. You know, we're all on the same platform. We all love the sport. We love the sensation you get from it. And for some reason, it seems to also be worldwide. It's as far as a paddock or a pits, the attitude is pretty similar worldwide. Like, obviously, when you get ultra competitive, it might change a little bit, but still in most paddocks, if you need a brake lever or a clutch lever, that's what the pod and just my whole business is about, is making people realize how big actual flat track or dirt track, whichever you want to call it, really is, because it's actually a huge industry, you know.
Oh, it is. You know, it's not just based in Australia. You know, when you look at dirt track as a discipline, in Australia, we've got quite a few numbers that people don't realise how big. Really, dirt track in Australia, as compared to other countries, is probably quite big. And the opportunities that some of the riders, like I look at some of the riders that ride Speedway now that come and ride motocross bikes, mate, these guys can ride so fast. You know, they are so fast. And they won't even try the 1919 setup. But it's such a balanced setup, because, and the way I explain it is, the front does exactly what the back does until you want to adjust it with your throttle or your body position.
Yes, good
You can pitch the thing into a corner, because I used to flick YZ490s around with 1919s in them years ago, when you on some tracks not even use brakes, just go and drop the thing in like a Speedway bike, wash the thing into a corner on the pegs, pick the thing up sideways left to sideways right to dropping it back into the left. And some of those tracks, Wagga, Griffith, some of the Dubbo, like just amazing tracks to ride a motocross bike. It may not have been at times the fastest way to do it, but it's the most fun.
Oh yeah, feels sensational. That two-wheel sliding sensation is just I don't know. I feel like I'm coming into corners twice as hard as I do on a motocross front wheel. I don't know if I really am, but it feels like it, and it just feels sensational, you know.
Well, there's only one way to test that, mate, and that's put it on a stopwatch. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, the stopwatch doesn't lie, and that's where it comes in. But at the end of the day, too, it's not about times, and it's not about the comparison, because it's like apples to oranges. Apples to oranges. You know, you've got one set of wheels and tires is very specific for what it does, and you've got another set of wheels and tires that's very specific for what it does.
Yeah.
And then on one hand, you've got these tires here, which you can use the front tire. I'll go back to the 80s. We would use the same front tire, and I'm not bullshitting. We would use the same front tire sometimes 2 and 3 years. You would use the same front tire.
Yeah.
I remember going through juniors with a 19-inch front tire, and I still carried that same tire into my senior years. And I think it was sold on one of the 250 Yamahas that I had.
Right. And were you flipping that, or just keeping it?
If we needed to.
Yeah.
If we needed to, we'd flip it. But if we didn't have to flip it, I wouldn't worry about it. And then your rear tires, you would get 3 to 4 meetings out of a rear tire, like as opposed to these ones these days.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know about anyone. Look, I used to go through a 21-inch front tire every meeting. Sometimes I'd go through 2. And when I say, if I'm racing right on the very edge and I'm out there trying to be the best out there, as soon as that knob becomes rounded on a front tire, it's gone. It's gone. Yeah. Because it's the difference between staying on and falling off when you're really pushing that envelope. And so I would sometimes go through 2 front tires, and most certainly would go through 4 rear. And it makes me laugh when some people go, oh, if you went through 4 rear tires, your suspension was wrong. No, if you didn't go through 4 rear tires at a championship event on a 450, you weren't having a go.
Yeah, not going hard enough. And I'm assuming you're talking about Michelin's there.
Oh, yeah, Michelin's. Yeah, definitely Michelin's. I went to V-Rubber for a little while in the 19s, and I felt the V-Rubber 19s were a really good tire around 2011. And then they changed the construction pattern of them, I believe, and they used to flex differently, and they weren't the same tire. So then I went back to Michelin's and just had to bite the bullet. Yeah. You know, I think I used to scour everybody's shed for secondhand Michelin's because I'd still use them.
And obviously, you know, what you're talking about there too is a big difference between a beginner, intermediate, advanced, and then champion as well. I think, like as far as tires and all that sort of stuff. Because like you're saying, if you're not going hard enough, you won't get that wear and tear anyway. So I think once you start. A lot of places don't grade now. In Victoria, we still have A, B, and C. But if you're in an A grade, I'd be changing my tyres more regularly because, you want that confidence. But, as a question, obviously being in tyres and wheels, I get all the time, how long will it last? What pressure should I run? So many variables. I mean, I remember doing a coaching clinic with you at Broadford, and you said 13 pretty much all the time, and that's sort of what I stuck to, and it's worked for me. But a lot of people, I don't know, different shapes, sizes, suspension, whatever, riding style, I don't know. I've had people drop ours down to 10 and say they work. I've had people run them at 16, say they work. Have people say they don't work at all.
I remember that 13 PSI comment, Darcy, and I don't know whether you would remember me saying this, but I would always back it up and say, if you lost an Australian championship, you didn't lose it because your tyre had 13 pound in it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I would say just leave it at 13 PSI. 13 PSI and you'll ride around it. But if it's 13 PSI, you will go out and it's just one thing that you don't have to worry about. You're not going to come in and go, oh, the tyre's got 13 pound. You've got to drop half a pound out of it. Like crap.
Yeah.
13 PSI. I know Lukey George up here, motocross coach. He's so animated, Luke. Great coach. He gone, I think it's 12 and a half pound, 12.5 pound. What you want it? Just put 12.5 pound in it, Cazzo. It'll work all day. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? It's hard when there's a lot of opinions, and I sort of think you just got to find what works for you and stick to it, like you say, right around some of it. Don't get too in your head about certain things. If obviously, I've had a friend that was having a hard time coming in all the time, going, my front end's not right, and we're sort of, try this, try that. And yeah, it turned out that the front end was actually broken, the rebound rod, or so he really did have an issue. But
he had an issue. Yeah, it had an issue.
But I mean, yeah, generally don't fuck around with it too much.
Particularly when you're on that edge, when you're right on that edge of everything, it's not just tire pressures you check. And when you're riding a 450 to everything that it's got, you're doing valve clearances, you're doing, there's so much you're going into the bike in preparation for each event in any case. So, I find that the tire pressures probably, I don't think it's probably as critical.
Yeah.
I know a lot of riders might go, oh, it's everything. Okay, to them it might be. But, like I said, I found most of my success made on 1313 front and rear.
Yeah. So what about suspension? Like, do you think that's something that a rider should be really paying attention to, or do you think you could get away with a stock motocross suspension if you're that type of rider and just ride around it?
Well, okay, I'll go back to when I was riding Hondas. I didn't feel that I felt that the best suspension on dirt track on a Honda was standard suspension. I tried other people's suspension and I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. I found that the Honda was just such a consistent motorcycle to ride. And I said a Honda to me was just like the best motorcycle you had with power steering. Every time you got to a corner, it just did it. It just did it. So I always liked the standard suspension in a Honda. As far as the Husqvarna being concerned, I always left the Husqvarna standard. But the best handling Husqvarna I ever had, Phil Bond set it up for me. Now, Phil Bond used to run the KTM factory motocross team. He had Central Coast KTM. Very meticulous. Like, he came to the Troy Bayliss Classic with me the year that we finished third. And he played with that bike all day long. If the temperature changed, he changed it. If the track conditions changed, he changed it. He would tell me exactly what the bike was going to do. He would tell me exactly how he wanted me to ride it. And it just brought me out in goosebumps, actually. He would tell me all day long. He never stopped tinkering with that bike. Bondi was an absolute magician. And I know he's done the same for Josh Pickering with his setup. So there's plenty of places out there that can go, I can set your suspension up for you. Conditions change all day, all day long. So you have to be very selective on who you trust, because I know I wouldn't get a bricklayer to come and do my PowerPoints in my house. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, you have to be very, very particular on who you actually get to do your suspension. And I know there's some reputable people out there, but I'm just giving it from my perspective. For me, Phil Bond was an absolute magician, and I hope he sees this and it gets back to him, because, mate, I watched him just tinker with this bike all day long. He'd wheel it into the sun. He would play around with it. He'd bring it back. He'd feel the seat. He'd change this. He'd look at the track. All day he'd change things. And that thing, well, I don't need to say anything. That thing just never put a foot wrong all day. It was such a nice thing to ride.
So have you ridden for every brand, or is there a brand or a couple brands that you haven't ridden for over the years?
Kawasaki. I've never ridden for Kawasaki. My dad had a thing against green, and I probably inherited that from him, but I've never, ever ridden for Kawasaki. I've ridden for most of the other brands. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Have you ridden a Quacker, or you just haven't even ridden one like socially?
I rode a KLX 110 when I was working for Motorcycle in New South Wales doing the come and try days. And that was good. It was electric start. It handled good, would chuck good wheelies, and it had good brakes for as fast as what I rode it. But other than that, I've never ridden a Kawasaki.
Yeah,
I've never ridden. Oh, no, I tell a lie, actually. Frank Lovett loaned me a 1986 or 87 model KX 250 to practice on when I was going from dirt track to motocross in the 80s, and things never panned out that way. But yeah, Frank gave me a Kawasaki to ride on, and I didn't mind it. It was quite nice. It was good. Seemed like a nice bike to ride. But Darcy, look, they're also very close these days. You know, look what Eli Tomac did on the Kawasaki.
Yeah.
Look what he's doing on the Yamaha. Look what Jason Anderson was doing on a Husqvarna. Now look what he's doing on the Kawasaki. You know, you've got James Stewart's brother now on the Husqvarna. You know, it takes them a little while to gel with that bike, but at the end of the day, they are so much alike in their characteristics now. So
so that's brings me to my next subject, and that's personal fitness and you know, looking after yourself to be the best you can. I know you're a big believer on this. Don't turn up unless you can bring it. So two riders out there that are sort of reaching for the stars and want to be the best, what's your suggestion? Sort of there's a fine line to overworking yourself too, isn't it? Do you have a sort of plan that you stuck to, like 6 days a week, 5 days a week in the gym, mixture of explosive exercise, mixture of cardio? Do you have anything you wouldn't mind passing on?
Mate, I had my foundation of cardio. I would get my foundation of cardio first. When I knew my cardio was where I needed to be, I didn't do anything else with my cardio. I'd go into my strength building phase, and I would ride a mountain bike like an animal. I'd ride a road push bike like an animal. If there was a hill coming up, I'd stand on them pedals and get up to the top of it. If I spewed at the top, you'd get over it. There was always a downhill on the other side. But when you get to that starting line, if there's ever a doubt that comes into your mind, that's where it'll come in. When you're about to let go of that clutch, if there's any doubts. So that's why, look, that was just the mental approach that I took. And I was a Nazi. I was a Nazi with my own fitness, and still am today. I think a lot of the variables now we get in the fitness type programs, and, you know, you can't go and walk into a gym and tell a guy that you race dirt track racing and he's, you know, here he is with a 23-inch bicep and he says, I know what you need, mate. And he gives you a weight training program. We race motorbikes and to get the understanding of what we do, but you want to have the foundation. If anyone wants to take any advice out of this, you have to have a foundation of cardio, and then you have to have enough muscle to be able to manhandle a bike, bump and grind into anyone to get them out of the way, and hang on to the motorbike with safety and do it time in and time out again and over and over and over on a 40-degree day, and then go home and be able to drive the car all the way home and not get cramps. So there's so much to it. Mate, even this morning, I know now I could go and get on a motorbike now, and I'm not being arrogant when I say this. I know I could go and get on a motorbike now on a track that suited me and still be competitive, because the fitness that I still do now reflects what I would do on a motorbike. And that is covering abdominals, core, lungs, chest, shoulders, bicep, tricep, forearms, grip strength, subscap, upper back, lower back, and legs. Legs are taken care of with the steps, with the squatting, and with the walking that we do on the push bike riding.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more to it than just going and jumping on a motorbike. And you know, I think when it comes down to it, you look at the guys in America and what the guys are doing in America, they're fit guys. They are really fit guys. When you get to Jared Meese's level and Henry Wiles's level, like they're national caliber wrestling at school. You know what I mean? Like the wrestling that they do at school is so much different to the fitness that we get to do at school here. So if you want to achieve whatever level you want to achieve, you'll get the result out of what you're prepared to put in, if I can put it that way.
Yeah, and that's pretty much a life message. I mean, in any part of your life, you only get out what you put in, I think. Your T-shirt sort of says it all too, just do it. If you want to get it, if you want something, you just do it and you make it happen. You work hard, do your research, find out what's going to benefit you and help you achieve your goal sooner. And I'm pretty strong on that. I'm getting older and I find it a bit harder to motivate myself sometimes, but after the broken collarbone, I sort of went, well, if I'm going to keep racing, I need to be fitter and stronger. So if I do have a mishap, which hopefully, I'm fit and strong enough, I can, like you say, bump and grind and be fine.
Exactly, mate.
But I also think being physically strong in recovery is really important. You recover a lot faster. You may not get injured near as badly as well if you're flexible and strong. I don't know.
Exactly, Darcy. And it's been 37 degrees here the last 2 days, and I know the training that I did this morning, I questioned myself, and I'm like, I'm 55 now, and I questioned myself. I'm like, what the hell are you doing, you stupid old bastard? But at the end of it, it's, I suppose I do it just because I love it now. I just enjoy it.
And you always feel good afterwards. Yeah, always feel good afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah, your health's your number one asset at the end of the day. And I'm not saying that I'll never ride again at all. And I remember years ago when I wasn't racing, I always trained just in case someone came up and said, Cuzzo, I want you to ride this motorbike. I always trained just in case that happened. And it happened with the Troy Bayliss Classic when Troy rang me up and said, will you come and do me meeting? And I was fit enough to do it. And I'd only just gone through a shoulder surgery, actually, and a knee reconstruction. So I had to be very, very careful. But yeah, I always maintain that level of fitness. I will ride another motorbike. I just don't know where. I don't know when, but I will.
And so you didn't do just track. You talked a bit about motocross. You did motard a bit too. You've got a few championship titles in motard as well. Is that correct? Is my research on the money there?
Yeah, that's in the old fellas class on the motard. I wanted to. I know. Look, there was a lot of people that wanted me. Excuse me, mate.
No, you're right.
When the motard first came out, everyone was like, even the superbikers are like, Cuzzo, you've got to do that, But yeah, I think it was the Australian Veterans Championship at the Newcastle Foreshore. I won that. There was a few guys in that class that I was pretty happy to get the win over them with that as well.
Yeah.
They had a lot more experience than what I did on the motard. And bear in mind, the bike that I had too was a dead set rocket. Jamie Stouffer set up my Husqvarna. I think we took it off methanol for that meeting. I think, yeah, we did. Weren't allowed to run methanol then, but
that one's on YouTube, isn't it? Pretty sure that event's on YouTube.
Yeah. And yeah, so I won a couple of motard titles in the veterans class. Look, no disrespect to the older fellas, but I don't really class those as championships. I think if you want to win a championship, you go in the open class, and that's where it is.
Yeah,
that's where it is. But if we're going to call that a championship, well, I'll take it. But I really did enjoy that. But mate, the foundation for everything that I did, Darcy, was motocross. I love motocross. Stephen Gall's my hero, and everything I did was based on motocross. I grew up with Joel and Tony Elliott, and we made a lot of tracks up around the Curry area. Joel passed away in 1994. Very sad time. So we used to do a lot of motocross all the time, but that was my foundation. And I'd be out dirt tracking all the time, but I was forever riding motocross, all the time riding motocross.
Yeah, so motocross sort of took off. Dirt track you said it had its heyday, like where it was quite big. What do you think? Oh, it's probably a silly question, weird question, but what do you think caused the fall of dirt track? Like why didn't it grow to be something bigger, like in America, or why is there not more of a pro circuit for dirt track in Australia? Do you think there's any sort of one cause, or it's many causes, or it's politics, or?
Oh, look, you could call it politics, I suppose, but at the end of the day now, like I said, Speedway has its own standalone discipline now from 9-year-old. Like we look at young James Pearson. James Pearson was a fantastic little talent on dirt track racing. But then when all he wanted to be was World Speedway champion. Even I was coaching him many years ago, and that's all he wanted to be was World Speedway champion. When they worked out that that was his discipline, that's where they focused their discipline. So we go back to the 80s, and you've got the era of Stephen Davies, Todd Wilshire, Chris Watson. I don't want to leave anyone out here. Craig Boyce, Rodney Colquhoun, Tony Rose in Queensland, Mick Powell in Queensland, all the other Queensland boys as well. They were all very highly credentialed young dirt track racers that used the skill they got from dirt track to go to Speedway. And when they went to Speedway, they never came back to dirt track at all. So when you take away that 80s where, okay, the sliders were separated from the motocross bikes in the late 80s, the very late 80s, I think, because it might have been the very late 90s. I wasn't even involved in the sport. So the separation happened between the sliders and the motocross bikes, and therefore, with that, then the need to ride a slider diminished because you didn't have that camaraderie with the motocross bikes. You had this standalone class, and a lot of those riders that I just mentioned had already gone and started to pave their way in the world of Speedway. Now, bear in mind, you got Todd Wilshire, Craig Boyce, just there alone. They from 1988, when they first started racing Speedway, they stood on the world podium by 91. 1990, 1991, 1992, they were at the world's best Speedway riders. So they took that with them. You look at Lee Adams and Jason Crump, never even came to junior dirt track racing. They just went straight into Speedway. So where it happened, I'm not quite sure, Darcy. I think these days the expense to actually do it, I think that's a real thorn in the side. To now have a 450 that has a $7,000 engine, like when you start talking about engines being $7,000, when you've got to buy the bike for 13, there's 20.
Yeah.
There's 20.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're riding a time bomb. If it lets go, you're over. It's gone.
So
unless you've got the backing.
This might be controversial too. I think the racing would be just as exciting and just as good with the bikes out of the box. I know there's a lot of people that disagree with that and say, no, they're not fast enough. But I think that's bullshit. I think that the racing, if you've still got the great race, the talent on those bikes, they'll milk them for everything they've got, and it's going to be close racing. There's no huge advantages. I know a lot of people will say, oh, no, that's bullshit, but listening, one of the reasons I formed this opinion is like listening to Gypsy Tales, which is a great podcast, and Jeff Ballard was on there. And track, I don't know if you ever raced with Jeff or what the age group differences and stuff, but he sort of said, dirt track was the money you had to spend on your engines and stuff was too much. Enduro was a bit more cost effective, and I wonder how much that's hurt the sport over the years. Because it seems to be always the constant. And another reason Kelpie exists is try to help riders stay on track for cheaper and bring more people in and give them a quality but cost effective product that they can use. They'll get longevity out of it. So. But as far 100%. As the engines, why can't we keep them stock? Well, maybe a pipe or something. Maybe 100%. Something.
100% agree with you. And I know there'd be riders out there, and I'd probably go as far to say Mick Kirkness would probably agree with this as well, that at the end of the day, if you kept the thing stock on 19s with the way they're preparing the tracks in Australia, on 19s, a stocker would probably just be as good as a full-blown engine 450, because you're going to get the power to the ground.
Yeah.
If you run the standard ignition setting on them anyway, you got traction control off the start. It has to be better than sitting there and lighting the things up.
Yeah.
But not only that, it's proven that these standard engines, we had, when I worked in the KTM shop at Cessnock, we had a KTM come in there that had 240 hours on the engine. Standard.
Yeah,
like,
that's a lot of hours.
200, and I'm not kidding you, 240 hours this thing, and the guy just kept the oil changes up to it, kept the filter changes happening with it. I think he put a piston and a set of rings in it, and that's all he did to it. But on that standard bottom end and the valves, 240 hours. Now, no one's going to tell me, I know the 450 that I just sold this year, the methanol burner, you would not do over 20 hours. And when you were doing over 20 hours, you're starting to wake up in a cold sweat of a night time, wondering whether or not it's going to blow up when you go to the race meeting on Sunday. Because that's there. And that has to be a factor. It has to be a factor. And I know the ones out there with the rocket ships won't agree. That's because that suits them. But put us all on a level playing field. And that's why I used to love, we'd go to some meetings, and Graham Boyd used to put on the little Race of Champions, and we would all turn up and we would ride little RMZ 110s or 125s, whatever they were, little standard 4-strokes.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the cream always rose.
Yeah, and how good's the
race to the top?
How's good's the racing now? It's a lot closer, a lot more like. So this is something I'm pretty passionate about. Is I feel that a lot of the clubs and races that are put on are about the racer. What about the spectator? So this is one reason that the sport hasn't grown, is what we're also there for entertainment, not only for ourselves, but for the spectator too. You want good racing. My wife won't come because she says it's boring. Well, no, it's not fucking boring. It is if you've got 4 or 5 breathers that are 10 bike lengths ahead of everyone, and they're not even battling either, because there's differences in money spent and whatnot. But yeah, I sort of think, in Australia and the AFTN, like you said, they've hit the nail on the head, and really providing a great platform that I think will be successful. Crossing all my limbs that it will be. We're putting a bit of money into it too, like a monetary gate prize for people just for turning up, just because I want to get people there to see how good the racing can be and what it can provide. I get quite upset turning tally on. I think it's a Saturday morning on 7 Mate, Thunder Nights, the Australian sprint car show on there.
Yeah, we don't have TV, eh?
Yeah, right. So they get airtime. The Australian Motocross Nationals, SBS, and on online, I can't remember exactly where they get airtime. What about flat track or dirt track? You never, and why not? Why is it not getting lifted up? And I
think this is probably why you're looking at the flat track nationals, Aussie flat track nationals.
Yeah,
they're going for a brand.
Yeah,
they're going for a brand, and they're going for a show. You're putting on a show.
Yeah, exactly.
You look at the Troy Bayliss Classic got airtime. Why?
Yeah.
It was a show. It was a show. The open events that they have these days, Darcy, they're no different to a club day. There are so many club days happening now that's you get a club day is no different to a championship. You know what I mean? And then not only that, you get the clubs that want to call their point score a fucking championship. It's not a championship. It's not a championship. I'm a big believer. A championship is when you bring all the best riders in the country together and they compete on that given day or rounds to become the elite in that class in the nation.
Yeah.
But I'm dead against. There's just so many. We've got a championship. We've got a championship now that happens. Like you can have the Cessnock Club champion, and you can have the Lake Macquarie Club champion, and you can have the Hunter Motorcycle Club champion. All their tracks within an hour of each other. Yet they're all a champion. Like, really? It diminishes. What it does, it diminishes this, again, it's my opinion.
Yeah.
It diminishes the value of becoming that champion. Because you can get someone in the pub that's just 10 schooners deep into a conversation. He goes, mate, I just won the club championship, dirt track down there at the road, and then someone says, I just won the national dirt track champion. So that makes him just as big a champion as what it makes the person that just won the Open National Championship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is where it's not it's just the norm. It's just you have got nothing different with dirt track. You see 150 events on a day, 4-lap races, same bikes, same classes, and it's just one after the. It's not a show.
Yeah.
So I'll go back to the Troy Bayliss Classic was a show. It was a show that he put on, and that's why it got airtime. The Australian Flat Track, the Flat Track Nationals, I believe they're going for that brand. They're going for that show.
Yeah.
And I believe that's what they're trying to aim towards. The day that they get it at a showground on 19s, I will find a bike. I will find a bike because that is good fun. That's good fun on a shale showground, 860 meters. I think there's footage of that from, you go to YouTube. I think there's footage from Cessnock Showground where I was on the Husky on 19s.
Oh, okay. You'll have to search
that was good fun.
Yeah.
That was good fun. Mm.
Yeah, well, Bathurst has come on board and that they've got a 19-inch class, which is, I've entered in that. That's going to be fantastic. My first trotting track was Oyen up by Mildura last year. And fantastic. Yeah, love those tracks. Just the slackness and the radius, it changes up how you're on.
Elbow down. You know what I mean? Like
you can just hold it on a lot more.
and you can, it's wide open and it's amazing how it might be a deep surface, but after you do 3 or 4 laps and the heat starts to generate into the tire, it's amazing how much more grip you get. Not because of the edge, because of the heat. The heat generates actually gives you so much more grip. So it's good when you experiment with the 19s on the shale surfaces as well.
I've got a little practice track out the back here, and the first time I went out on American tires, I was pulling monos, and I was hardly ever do that on my block tires. It was just the way the surface was packed that day, and soon, like you said, as soon as they got a bit of warmth, and then they were grippy as. I couldn't believe how grippy it was. But also, there's a bit of reverse psychology I found out in that too. If you have them not enough PSI, you won't be turning that bastard, not easily anyway, not comfortably. They like to slide out, so you need to. We discovered sort of. You don't go much below 13 PSI once again.
13, that magic number.
13 or higher, I would say, is sort of what I recommend to people. I've stuck with 13. It seems to serve me fine. But I've known a couple guys go 15, 16, and they seem to be a bit faster on that. It's awesome. So sort of getting along here. We've been about an hour, which is fantastic. I feel like we could talk for a lot longer. Let's so we know you've proven yourself in dirt track, flat track, won lots of shit. What do you have a favourite memory? I know this is hard when you've had a career like yours, isn't it? So there's a lot of memories there. Is there something that really stands out with the Troy Bayliss, some of your favourite moments? Or was there stuff in the earlier days, like when there was cigarette sponsors and that sort of stuff, drinking in the pits after maybe, or, the atmosphere? It doesn't necessarily have to be just about the racing. Was there sort of like a heyday for you?
Oh, mate, look, you couldn't beat the 80s. The 80s was good. You know what I mean? Like, it was so good. It was so big. There were so many riders, notable riders, Peter Goddard, the Kevin Ortons, John Foreman. Like, everywhere you went, like, I was the cheeky little ass 16-year-old that I came in telling them that I was going to kick their ass. I told them, they knew that I was coming, I told them I pulled no punches with that. So, and from that, they probably thought I was an arrogant little prick, big-headed little prick, but I backed myself up. The 80s was such a good time because we had the racing was just incredible between the sliders and the motocross bikes. I say this even today, it would have been good to actually look at some of the races that I was in as a spectator from on the hill, because I was in the race and I know what some of the races were like. Some of the races that Chris Watson and I had over the years, just unbelievable, Darcy. Unbelievable. I could sit here and explain every single corner, every single pass and move, right down to the line, to the finishing line on every race. They were such vivid, beautiful memories I'll hold forever. The Troy Bayliss, every single Troy Bayliss to me was a highlight because we prepared for that. We practiced together. We talked trash together. We G'd each other up with it like it was good. We prepared a completely different level for that event than any other level. He gave us an opportunity to really showcase what Australian dirt track was. Outside of that, the races that I had with Luke Richards, from 2009, 2010, I was hurt in a work accident in 2011, and I didn't race until the Troy Bayliss Classic in 2013. I finished racing in 2011. I was the defending Australian champion in everything, and I couldn't race because of workers' compensation, and I couldn't risk it.
Yeah.
But the races that I had with Luke Richards in 2009 and 2010, they were crackers. We had some dead set cracker races, and I know Luke he'd still remember those ones as well. Like, there was not an inch given. No, I mean a millimeter. There was not 1 millimeter given.
Yeah.
We had a little bit of tension there with the whole Phil Tomlin thing that come on board. But at the end of the day, we kept it clean on the track, but it was super aggressive and super competitive. So when I look back, there's just too many. There's too many, really. But if you could break it down, the 80s were unreal. The Troy Bayliss era was unreal. And then on my own personal level, the 2009, 2010 years was just awesome. And then the opportunity that John Hafey gave me with the Team Husqvarna Dirt Track Squad to finish things out, that was good. That was good sort of guide and a bit of talent that we had there. Yeah, they're all highlights.
Sort of getting into that team thing, do you think that there ever is the potential for pro dirt track or pro flat track races in Australia to be, that's their job, they come, they race, they get paid? Do you think that's ever an opportunity there for that? I personally, I do. Like you're saying, personal opinions here. I think we can, but a lot of people say, nah, it's not big enough. There's not enough population. But I think what you were saying before about AFTN and the Troy Bayliss, if you have a show on, and I think this is where the sprint car, while I was mentioning the sprint car shows, and even the power boats, which we call sprint boats back in New Zealand, they've got their own show. I think if you present a show that the stations and networks think, hey, this is something the public will enjoy and, will pick it up. I think if you can start getting that happening, getting more, that will bring more people to the track, bringing more money in, but getting more businesses, like larger businesses going, hey, there could be something in this. Like for America, Michael Locke really changed things over there. Mission, I don't know if he was responsible for bringing Mission Foods in, or someone had that contact of is it Miguel? I can't remember the owner's name of Mission, who, funnily enough, loved flat track racing. Turns out he loves all motorsport because now they're pouring money and millions of dollars into lots of different disciplines of motorsport. But that showed me that all it takes is one person with the right contact that's happy and passionate to put some money towards the sport we all love, and boom, next minute there's a whole thing going on. It might only last 5 years. I don't know. That's, might last a year. I don't know. But I do think it can happen.
Look, I had a connection with Wayne Gardner here going back a few years ago, back to 2007, 2008, when I was the chairman on the Dirt Track Commission. And Wayne said himself, like, when he seen what it was that I was doing with the coaching, and then he came back to the dirt track and he said, Cazzo, he said, you know what? He said, potentially we could create something here where in the off season, all the riders from overseas come to Australia. And he said, if we've got the program in place here, he said, there is so much world championship potential we have in Australia here. It's like you could have it on a conveyor belt. It's funny, I only just made this comment on Facebook here through the week. As far as honing in on that, I think what a lot of Australians need to do is they need to come together. They don't have segregation through rivalry. Yeah. If they're going to go and conquer this, they all need to come together and embrace what own individual qualities they have. And if they can bring all that together and in a group, and then we've got a squad or a training squad that you've got an AFT program that you can guide and nurture these riders in that are going over for round one of the AFT singles in Daytona Beach. I think it's very doable. Most certainly it's very doable. Who would do that, Darcy? I don't know. Because I know now these days, my wife's very, very choosy on what we do with our time. Yeah. And I know I'm going coaching next weekend up to Airlie Beach. The coaching's not a drama, but I know that, and I'm not saying that I should do it because you've got Michael Kirkness. I think Mick Kirkness and the experience that Mick has is an absolute asset to the 19 side of what we do with Australian Flat Track Nationals. Absolute asset. He was up at the very echelon of that discipline in America, and he just proved what he can do with the latest Flat Track Nationals just by pulling a bike out the shed and going out and doing it.
Yeah.
And just being very smart, very smooth, very calculated, and he won it. And at the end of the day, I don't think anyone represents a better option to guide riders into a successful pathway than Mick does, because he has that. Luke Goff is another one. Luke Goff went over there and Goffy had some success in America as well. Their time restraints and family commitments as well. All that's got to come into it. I think it's very achievable. Most certainly it is. You look at what Craig Boyce is doing now with the Speedway experience, and look at the doors of opportunity he's now opening for the riders to go and experience international success with their, and him and Mick Holder is doing it. No question. Yeah. No question. They're doing it. They've got their own brand, Speedway Experience. Yeah. And it wouldn't surprise me whether you would get some kids coming over here in the off season to then experience that kind of coaching and mentorship. This is what, and I believe we could also experience that even. It's a shame that Troy Bayliss stopped, because I thought we were right on the very edge of really opening up some doors there.
Yeah, we had a few internationals come across and compete, and I think, like with the DTRA, they had Jeffrey Carver there on their last round, and I think that's the opportunity 19s presents, is that those guys already race that setup. So when they come over here, it's not a big change. It's not a scary thought of going, I've never raced that 2118, and I'm sure they can do it. They're talented guys, but it just brings us all together. I was meaning a lot more of actually having guys being paid here. So this is one of my missions. We've got 2 pro riders this year for Kelpie that will be racing in the AFT rounds all 6 rounds, so 3 different tracks back to backs, and they get paid to race whether they win or not. And so this is, and I'm no millionaire. I might even have to do a few more shifts to make sure that I can pay them. But this is what I want people to see, is that it doesn't actually take a millionaire to make these changes, or someone with shitloads of money. It just takes a bit of working together, a little bit of networking, a little bit of working together, and showing that we can have an industry like that here. And what happens when you show that in an off season in another country, they go, I wonder if I could get a team in Aussie and go and run a few races there, and maybe make a little bit of money, and then a business over there like Dallas Roof Systems or something might say, hey, employ an Aussie racer, and then take him back to America. It's the opportunities are endless. But like you're saying, the biggest thing is we've got to all work together and not just go, oh, fuck, I hate 19s. I'm quitting the sport if they bloody bring them in. Give it a chance. And because I do believe that 21-18 doesn't have to fade out. Everyone's got to start somewhere, or 21-19, you can buy one of our tyres, buy one of our competitors' tyres on your motocross rim and get into the sport, So you don't want people to have to buy a 19 front as well, if they're starting out, or, you probably go 6 years on that setup before being ready to be that competitive. Some will be quicker, but
or even that's the foundation, Darcy. Even have that as our foundation, that you've got your 21-18 or 21-19 as your foundation. You just buy the bike, put them tires on it. But if you want to make that step, this is the step. This is the progressive step. This is the next step.
If you want to be pro and the elite of the elite, that's where you go. But
that's where you go.
And not everyone wants to be that, like, I would love to have a crack at it, but I don't know if I'm capable, I'm challenging myself. And now I'm 46, so I'm sort of transitioning in age, and my opinions and views have changed a lot. I don't feel as aggressive about being as the best I can be on the bike. I'm starting to look at things differently, like, how can I help these young guys that I can see that are aggressive already and can be the best they can be? How can I help them be the best they can be? And maybe it's quite a different lifestyle than becoming a chippy, or, I do believe you should have something to fall back on, but how can I help elevate people? And that's why I'm paying these riders. And we've got 3 development riders and 2 pro riders. So I'm pretty proud of that. And that's all within 12 months of having my products and business. Some's coming out of my own pocket. I work 4 different jobs, but
well, that's awesome opportunity that you're giving some riders. That's very unique, over here, because it's been a long time. I don't know of any dirt track rider that's actually been paid other than Jack Miller.
Yeah, right. And that's what, that's why I'm bringing it up. It's not blowing my own horn. It's just letting people know it is possible. It is possible to make this happen for guys and girls. And, it just takes a little bit of all coming together. Since I've started started Kelpie and the Kelpie pod, I've had quite a few people reach out to me and say, we're really stoked on what you're doing, believe in the 19s idea. I was actually almost fell over, actually. There was one week I was getting called just about every day. And, they all sort of on the same path. If we work together, we can make this happen and give our riders a decent platform, And
that's the sentence you said just there.
Yeah.
Everyone has to work together.
Yeah.
Everyone's got to work together. They've got to forget this division. This whole division shit, like it will never go anywhere. It will never go anywhere unless everyone works together.
Yeah.
Together we can achieve anything.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, nothing. You look at your own life. Nothing happened just solely on yourself. There's
No,
always someone there that helped you reach that next bit.
yep. Look how big a team it took to put a man on the moon.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like massive.
yeah,
You know,
massive.
everyone working together with a common goal, you can achieve anything. Yeah.
So as you're sort of getting a bit nearer the end, or well, you're not fully retired, are you, from racing? You said you would still hop on the bike if the chance came.
I yeah,
So
I have actually retired from racing. My race license has expired. I have no intentions of renewing it at all.
yeah,
I think also that's another big issue that really holds a lot of the sports and disciplines back in this country is I think someone was saying there the other day that the race license is now up around $350 for a race license.
yeah,
You know, I mean, have a race license worth $350 and yet have your own ambulance fund on top of that. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
there's and the accident insurance that comes with it. Like, really? We'd be better off going and joining the
yeah,
AMA. And I mean the AMA of America, because I think the AMA
yeah,
of Australia has just fallen over through insurance. And I know the insurance makes it so very, very difficult, but I just can't see. I have no value in that, Darcy, in renewing a race license. Maybe on that, maybe I may go and do one race meeting.
yeah,
It's just
yeah.
not value for money for me.
No,
You know,
that's
so
right.
yeah, I am retired from racing as
Yeah,
such until someone comes up and says, Cazzo, we want you to do this race meeting. Well, it'll cost them my race license as well because I'm not buying it. I
yeah.
won't buy it.
So did you sort of, do you miss the racing, miss being around the people? How have you stayed connected? Have you been using Caslick's clinics and still coaching regularly? Or I know you
No,
did fast as well, your vlog, or what would YouTube
that's just
channel?
it was after my dad passed. After my dad passed, I needed something. I needed something. I was lost. I didn't even want to be here, to be totally honest.
Yeah, okay.
Um, I had to seek some professional help to try and straighten me out in that area because I thought about I just didn't want to be here.
Yep.
Um, so that fast helped me get through some real dark times myself. I will get back to fast again,
Yeah, cool.
but um, but yeah, as far as even the coaching now, the coaching, even the high performance coaching has been so under diminished by the club coaching program. You know, when people see the club coaching program and they think that's all you need, at the end of the day, the high performance coaching side of it's exactly that. It's high performance. It's high performance stuff. And you're calling for the very best from riders, both on and off the bike. And it's very structured, and it's also something that's researched. It's not something you just fall into. So I don't pursue the coaching now because I just couldn't be bothered. You know, I just can't be bothered dealing with the people. I just can't. They make it so very difficult that I just throw my hands in the air. I have a beautiful wife. We have a beautiful life, and it's not without its moments. Everyone has their moments, but
Yeah, of
at the
course.
same time, we enjoy now being disconnected. We enjoy being disconnected from the connection of everyone and the phone going off all the time and this going on and trying to chase this up and trying to chase that up. If someone wants me to go and do a coaching day at their track, different to their normal club day coaching type stuff, well, then I'll do it. Not a problem.
Yeah,
But I don't pursue it. I just
yeah,
don't. You know, that's why I'm going to North Queensland, because they know what I do for the riders up there. They know the value that I give them, and they're happy for me to go up there and put it all on the table like I do for the riders. And I go up there with one thing in mind, that's teaching these kids up in North Queensland to be the very best they can. At the same time, respect their parents and the officials and everyone else in the sport, and enjoy enjoy the journey. enjoy the journey, which takes a long time.
Yeah, certainly does. Like I mentioned earlier, I look at it as an apprenticeship, and it's not necessarily your standard 3-year sort of deal. It's constantly learning things. I mean, I'm going through another learning thing now, taking on different roles, and not only about the racing, but just people, dealing with people, and life in general, really, I guess. But look, it's been one other thing I noticed, I was looking through some photos and stuff of you online. If any listeners want to check out Paul Caslick, just type it into Google. There's a shitload of stuff that comes up. So it made researching you pretty easy, mate, which was good. There was a funny stat, though, on, I think it was on Troy Bayliss' Facebook post from like 2014 or something. 155 Queensland championships. I was thinking, how's that possible? Was that like, were they running 10 a year or?
Yeah, they would have, again, like you wouldn't go to Queensland and do a club day. There wasn't club days in Queensland. Every time we went to Queensland, it was a championship.
Yeah, okay.
You might have the Southeast Queensland Championship. You might have the Wheel Standers Championship. Everything you went to Queensland for, the very best riders in the country were there. I mean, the very best. Victoria, Queensland, you had some from South Australia, New South Wales. We're talking 800 riders here to some of these events.
Yeah.
And you would ride 2 and 3 bikes. And you measure it up. We traveled to Queensland from 1976 through to 1987.
Yeah, right. Yep, well, that adds up then. That makes sense, because I was thinking, if it's once a year championship, how's that possible? I know you're getting up there, but not quite,
I counted the trophies. Trust me, I counted the trophies, and I know when I moved to Sydney, I think I took, I had a van and a trailer full of trophies, and I took them to the Salvation Army. I took all the plaques off them. And I wasn't going to cart 1,200 trophies with me wherever I went and relocated to. I thought, that's just insane. So I remember I rang the lady and I said, do you take trophies? And she said, no one's ever asked us that before. So I walked in with the first box of trophies and she went, wow. She said, you've got some? I said, that's nothing. Come out here and you can help me bring them in. So I took in all these trophies, and the local trophy guy bought every one of them the next day for $1 each.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I've probably still got, I don't know, for the championship ones and the trophies that meant a lot to me over the years, I've probably still got, I don't know, 300, 250, 300 in boxes and bags. And I've got boxes of plaques and medals and sashes. And yeah, I've got quite a lot of memorabilia there.
Yeah, so what I noticed with the photos was the number 3 on your number plate. So I always ask riders how their number came about. Was that your forever number?
I went to a short circuit meeting at Salty Creek Speedway many, many years ago. And Jim Airy rode there. And he rode number 3. And he kicked everybody's ass. He was so spectacular that day on a speedway bike, and I'm this little kid. I used to get to a meeting like that, and Dad used to say, you know what, mate, if you get lost, come back here. I'm going in the pits to see a few. He'd go in the pits and see a few of his mates, and he knew I'd just go and stand on the back of utes with blokes, and I'd sit there and watch, and I would go there and scout all the information I could as a little kid. And I remember Jim Airy riding number 3. And when I came back into the sport, I went number 3.
Yeah,
Not only that, the top 3 numbers were always reserved for first, second, and third in the state championship. And then I won the state championship one year, and I thought, I'm just going to take number 3 because no one else took number 3. So everyone become accustomed to me riding under number 3. So it's funny when you say about number 3, because if I go to work and we got a cubicle line of toilets, it's 10 rows. I'll always either go 3 from the end or 3 from that end. If it's a urinal, I'll go 3 from that end or 3 from that end. Always number 3.
It's embedded deeply.
Yeah. And
Beautiful.
I had a really good year in 1986 in dirt track racing. Other than the Australian Championship in the rain at Maryborough, I won a hell of a lot of championships that year in 1986, and I was number 3.
Yeah, awesome.
Mm.
Well, look, well done on your career and all your racing, and staying with us, and yeah, it's pretty impressive. Like I said, there's lots of information about Paul online if you want to research him a bit more. Or maybe you want to have a special coaching day at your club or something, reach out. It's good to hear you're still pretty passionate. I know from some rumours you still support some young guys and give them a hand, help out when they need it and that sort of stuff. So, without people like you guys around our sport and involved and speaking your mind and saying, giving us your opinions, we'll never progress, and it wouldn't be what it is without you guys. So yeah, thanks for being part of the sport. And like, I don't know you real well. I've met you a handful of times, a coaching clinic. I think I met you again at the Melbourne motorcycle show on that sort of square track. I was buzzing around on the 125 on the on the come and have a go sort of session.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. But thanks a lot, Paul, and hopefully we'll catch up and get to have another chat. We also know I did a bit of a New South Wales road trip, and I met a guy called Daryl Mallam, which I watched one of your fast casts with him. He actually sent me it saying, "Oh, check this one out." So Mal's a pretty cool dude. So
rich history.
Rich
history, Mal, like incredible.
Yeah, so like I said before, we've been talking almost a couple of hours now, and I'm sure there's a lot more we could cover. So maybe we'll have a catch up. Will you be following the AFTN at all? Or?
Yeah.
I
follow it on the social media as much as I can. Like I said, we don't have a TV. We don't have TVs at home. Yeah. You know what I mean? We've got 2 young girls at home, and we did want to go through the whole, train bombing scare tactics that the media tries to drive and all that kind of shit. So we do a lot of stuff at home that doesn't involve a TV. We've got so much more of our life is so much more richer because we don't have a TV. Yeah. And that's good. But look, thanks for the opportunity, Darcy, to come on. It's good that we got it sorted out the first go.
Yeah, it's good. We've popped your Zoom, Cherry.
Yep. Shout out to what you're doing, mate, with the Kelpie brand, and good luck with everything. If there's anything I can do to, any advice or help you in any way, just give us a hello. And I'd just like to say thanks to the dirt track friends that I've made over the many, many years, and thanks to the people that have supported me over the years. And look, if anyone wants any high performance type coaching done, I'm only an email away, and at the end of the day, like now, it doesn't take much to reignite that flame again. It's just under the surface. It just sits there in pause.
Yeah. Well, my girls, they all were close to getting race licenses and decided not to race. And every time they jump on the bike here, they go, "Oh, I think I want to start racing." Every time they just come off the helmet, you can see the smile under the helmet. It's just something about riding a motorbike. It's pretty hard to explain, really. You just got to do it to, and it's not for everyone, but just about everyone I've put on a bike has come back just smiling and love it and want to do more of it. It's just that sensation. So
it's your own little world, mate, inside that helmet.
Yeah, it's
no
fantastic.
No one can hurt you inside that helmet, only you.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a one of a kind experience that I promote and try to get as many people to have a crack at it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, mate, and well done, Darcy. And look, once again, mate, thanks for having me on. Hey.
Yeah, no worries. And like you said, we had a couple technical issues, nothing major, but we got around it. And like we've been saying the whole pod, that's what happens when you work together. You get there in the end.
We get there in the end, mate. Yeah, it's all good.
Awesome, so, Paul. Thanks for coming on. And we'll chat soon.
Yep, not a problem at all, mate. Thanks, Darcy.
So how was that? Pretty fantastic pod. Lots of information there. Some real nuggets of information there. Suspension, tire pressure. You heard it from him, not me. Yeah, I think, as a racer, you can take a lot out of that one. You might have to listen to it a couple of times. Like I said, sorry about the lagging and that, but that sometimes technology is like that. I think it actually might have been my end, weirdly enough. But anyway, it is what it is. And it was great chatting to Paul. I think we could definitely have another one and talk about more. There was more stuff afterwards that I thought about. Oh, I didn't ask him about this, and but it was great, and he's very accommodating and never used Zoom before, so he did a good job from his end. Also, I did make a blooper. I said the Jerry Ballard, who is an enduro racer in Ballard's off road, was on Gypsy's Tales. I'm pretty sure I said on there, but it was actually Dirt Bike Burrito, which is another great podcast. Check that out too. That's a great podcast. Gypsy Tales, a lot of you I know listen to it. It's a great podcast too. I was actually, while cleaning the cottage this morning, listening to Tank Slapping, and that's with Corey Texter. If you don't know, in America, check that out, because that episode actually was a ripper. It was all about promoting and their views on promoting. So some great information in there if you are looking at doing that, and putting on events, or I know it's a pretty big thing when you think, what, I might start an event, but give it a crack. Just give it a go. We learn from our mistakes, or if you want to call them failures, we learn from them. I hope I'm setting an example for people that may not be racers but want to be involved, love the sport, maybe past races and can't throw a leg over for whatever reason now, but want to be involved. I've noticed a few people in that category joining committee boards and stuff like that. It's fantastic. That's what we need. Like Paul was saying, and myself in the pod, we've got to come together. Stop fighting against each other. You might, you might have to give some things away to get what you want, and look, it's not really that big a deal. I do it all the time. It's called compromising. It's about the sport and getting the recognition that it needs and should have. It's like I was saying, these shows for other sports that are probably in the same boat as where dirt track or flat track was, and people had lost interest, or they'd lost audience because of organisers and people and politics and all that getting in the way, and that hinders the sport. We all love the sport. That's why you listen to these pods, because I know my voice isn't the most beautiful voice in the world, so you're listening to it for information and to and to support it and learn about the sport and growth and just be involved. That's why you're here. So don't be afraid to give things a crack. If you own a small business, maybe start a team for just the AFTN at least, or it's 6 rounds, so 3 weekends. It's actually, the way they formatted it's pretty easy to organise. Say our first year as a team, it's not going to be a semi rocking up with Kelpie on it. It's pretty low key. I've only got 2 pro riders because that's what I can afford, and I'll be busting my balls to make that happen. On the financial side, I can tell you now, because it does add up quick. But you might just get one rider. You might be the pit boss, the manager, and everything. But I think giving that one rider a couple $100 to ride a motorcycle could change their life. So $800, or depend on how many rounds you can do. I think that's a good way to start changing the sport. Privateer teams, and show that, also send a message, I think, to bigger companies. If these guys can do it, especially like a small business like ourselves. We've only been running for a year, technically in the market for a year. We've been running for closer to 3, but COVID and everything stuffed me up, factories and shipping and all that stuff. It really drew out and made it quite difficult, but keep on pushing through. We're here now, we're doing it. I've got the pod going, which is amazing. I was really nervous about starting that, because once I start something, I don't just want to let it go. But, you keep pushing through, and next thing you know, there's this industry happening that all these people used to say, that will never happen. But if you have a good look around, it's happening. So great work, everyone that does put their hand up and put in, and everyone in clubs and on committees. It's hard work, good job, keep going. Not that you need it, but you have my stamp of approval. It's awesome. Just keep it. Keep going. I know there's heaps of you out there that actually do really put in and work hard and want to see dirt track grow. Whatever what wheel size, who gives a shit really? It's all in the same discipline, and we just want to see it get recognition and grow further and further. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. There are going to be more pods from Kelpie for you to listen to, so don't go off to the and just listen to Gypsy Tales and Burritos and Tank Slapping and forget about us. Come back. Check out our social medias, Kelpie on Facebook, Kelpie on Instagram. They're the only two I really do. It just makes life a little bit easier. Reach out through email. You can reach out to me, messaging me through the Facebook page as well. Someone did say it was a bit hard to get hold of me. I don't put my mobile on our webpage, or typically don't put it on any social media, just because of spam and hackers. So it's information that they can use quite effectively, and then I'll be in a world of trouble. So just shoot us an email, go through the Facebook message bit, and I'll definitely get back to you. And if you are having trouble, and it's most likely someone that knows how to get in touch with me directly anyway. So I've got a few contacts throughout the country now, which is awesome, and past customers that have got my phone number because I gave it to them and that sort of thing. So WA, South Australia, New South Wales, Queensland and Victoria are all covered. So you shouldn't really have trouble getting hold of me. If it is a ongoing issue, I've only had the one mention. If it is an ongoing issue, I'll buy a cheap mobile or something and just have that line. But I prefer not to. Anyway, hopefully we catch up with Macau. He's missing in action. Well, he's not really. He's been busy. He's obviously works through the Christmas period pretty much. He's getting plenty of seat time on his 19s. You might have seen a bit of a reel that we did where he was having his first crack here. I raced against him at the SSRAV day, and he's starting to look a lot more comfortable on it. A few little tips from myself that then I couldn't get near him, so why did I do that? That was a bit silly. But no, that's what I want. I won't be racing the AFTN. Most likely I'm going to be doing my team manager role there. So I really want them to do the best they can and feel comfortable, and that's what that day was all about, on a different surface. And my surface, our track surface, is quite different. It's just plain old dirt pretty much, sort of sandy, but just it's not like the sand granite tracks at Broadford and Appin and that sort of thing. So he did that one mainly to get the feel on the 19s on that, and I think quite enjoyed himself. We had a couple good battles. Then he said he's feeling like Yeah, well, actually, I won't go into that because I'm just rambling, and he can tell you when we track him down. He said he would come on and co-host. So, yeah, the next one hopefully is going to be Harrison Small, who's a fantastic rider. I don't know all the information just from my memory, which is pretty fuzzy anyway, but I've seen him around the traps for the last few years. Went from junior to senior. It's gotten a lot quicker. Gives my ass a paddling. He has done some great stuff. Looking forward to talking to him and how he feels he's progressing and what his goals are. Awesome family, the Smalls, the whole family, are right into the racing. So yeah, looking forward to catching up with Harrison and checking out what they've got on for 2023, checking out what Brendan McCowart's got on for 2023. We know AFTN, definitely. Not sure about other stuff. I know he's really busy with the Harley Club, being El Presidente. And I'll read that calendar out soon, actually, maybe at the start of the next Harrison's pod or something like that, which I think it may change a little bit, but there's some good stuff on there. And so what do we say here in the Kelpie Flat Track Pod world? Keep it sideways, go Flat Tracker. Go! Go Flat Tracker, go, go, go!